If you've been feeling more overwhelmed than usual lately, this episode might help explain why. New research, including insights from Brené Brown, suggests that the problem isn't that you're falling behind. It's that the pace of change has outstripped what our brains were built to handle. So let's talk about it.
Welcome to Therapy, Tech, and Takeout. We're an entrepreneur and therapist exploring how technology is shaping mental health and what it means for how we live, connect, and care for ourselves. I'm Toni Teixeira. I'm the therapist. I am doing well, having a good week. I know, just kind of feeling into the summer and just enjoying. I think I made my task kind of this summer to enjoy lazy moments.
I love
To
that.
find lazy moments
Heck yeah.
and really challenge myself not to do anything.
Heck yeah. I love that.
Yeah, and I'm finding myself doing a lot of guilty reading, just fun fiction
Yeah.
and things like that. So I think that's what I like to do when I don't have things to do is just kind of sit around and read and enjoy
That's awesome.
some silly books. So I'm enjoying. Yeah. So I'm enjoying that. How about you? What's
Fantastic.
happening for you?
Well, I can't see myself, so I don't know if you can see this, but I got on our local paper, so that's exciting.
That is
They
very
did a really nice
exciting.
article about me and the business and my partners, so that was really exciting. And tonight I'm going to go see the Odyssey with my kiddos, so I'm looking forward to that as well.
Wonderful. We were supposed to go do that this weekend and our plans got changed. We didn't get to do that. So I'm excited for you to get to see it. I hope it'll be out in a couple weeks still when we finally will have an opportunity.
I'm sure
to
it
see
will. I'm sure
Yeah.
it will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping I enjoy it more than I enjoyed having to read the books in middle school.
Middle school. I didn't read them until college, by the way.
No, they were. I took Latin. It was like the only language offered in middle school at the school I went to, and the Iliad was like 6th grade reading, and the Odyssey was 7th or something like that. Ugh.
Wow.
But
I'm impressed.
I liked the story, going high. I like the stories were interesting. I just got lost in the minutia of the volume of reading. I think for me as a kid, but
Really heavy for a youngster to read.
right, it's a little much, but I'm excited, and all the actors and actresses. It should be so much fun. I had to go with my kids,
and I'm excited for you. I'm just really excited about the publicity you're getting, and I really hope it brings you lots of business and
awesome. Thank you.
relationships,
Yeah.
fun relationships. I know you're a people person.
I am, and I'm loving that part of it. Well, I'm so excited to talk today because it kind of relates to all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Today we've got an article about it. It's from Fortune magazine, and the title is Brené Brown warns American workers are not neurologically wired for this level of rapid change and instability. People are not okay. And when I read that headline, it kind of felt like, thank you. Yes, Brené.
You felt validated.
I really did. And I was like, we will cover this.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does feel like that. It feels like that's a feeling a lot of people out there are having right now. And so it was interesting to me to kind of unpack some of the underlying reasons behind that.
Right. Well, there's, we could say they're not okay on so many different levels.
Right?
I think we're only going to be looking at a very small in comparison to all the different ways we could not be okay right now in this world. But this is a pretty big one in terms of it's about really our work world. And that's so much time that we spend in our lives, in our working relationships and our workplaces.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that it's not something, that's going to go away if we ignore it either. I think we really need to understand the implications that this rapid change and uncertainty is having so that we can address it from a leadership perspective and help make sure that we're supporting our workers, as much as we can through the uncertainty, even if,
Yeah.
we're going through it ourselves. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, in a nutshell, like the workplace is an uncertain place to be right now. And there's lots of different reasons economically, but also I think because of AI driving the uncertainty
yeah.
because it's so rapid and people's jobs are being taken away from them. And we're not even sure at what pace. I think it might take over in 10 months or it might be 2 years or it might be 10 years. Like we don't
Yeah.
really, there's no way to tell what the progress looks like because it went like this. And
Yeah.
are we gonna make another leap? Is it gonna stay flat for a while? So people are living in this really uncertain place.
And I think, those timeframes that you said there, I think those came straight from like Bill Gates or somebody. Like this came from like tech leadership, like not having that level of uncertainty, the folks that are sort of at the helm of understanding it. And if they're not clear about sort of those timelines, obviously
Mm-hmm.
workers are going to be really unsettled by them as well.
Right. Right. So this article really, it's like I think a piece of her speech or like kind of a synopsis
Yeah.
of what Brené Brown was talking about. She was talking about not being wired for that certainty. Like our brains like safety and our brains like certainty.
Yeah.
I want to throw a little bit of a wrench into this
Okay.
and actually say our brains are actually wired for survival.
Fair.
That's right. And I think what this is doing is turning on that survival mechanism. Like our brains really are wired for this, but that's not a good thing, right? Our brains are really wired for survival, and uncertainty brings us to the level of that unpredictability, not knowing what's happening next, not feeling safe mode.
Yeah.
And it's keeping us in survival mode so we can't thrive.
Yeah.
So in some ways we're built for survival, but we're not built to constantly be in survival mode. We're built to survive the threat and then move on.
Yeah.
So that's the part that we're really not meant to be in survival mode the whole time. We're really good at detecting a threat. We're really good at taking care of it. But when we don't have the opportunity to come down to baseline, we're constantly in survival mode. And there's no way to thrive. And given what society looks like now, we really need to dig deep to that place where we're in a more thriving mode so that we can figure out what we're going to do next.
Yeah.
If we're all in safety mode, we're not going to be able to, AI is going to take off and I don't know, we're all going to work at, greeters at Walmart or something. I don't know what human jobs, will be left. But just thought about in my Stop and Shop, they have Marty who goes around and cleans up the messes that are on the floor. It's like a machine. Yeah. So it goes around, it detects messes, it can clean them up and stuff. So I don't know. So
Interesting.
yeah. Anyway, I threw a lot out there. What are you thinking?
Yeah. So I think you kind of answered one of the questions I had for you, but let me make sure I'm getting this right. One of the questions I had for you was why does uncertainty drain us? When nothing bad has happened, but I think if I'm understanding sort of the stuff you just said, it's living in that heightened state of anticipation of threat, living it in that place where I'm ready to respond to XYZ threat that I can either name or I can't name, but I know there's a threat out there, and I'm constantly on the alert for it, so I never get to return to. And that's exhausting.
That's right.
Any of us who've ever waited for anything, knows how exhausting just waiting can be, because you've got to constantly be on alert. So that makes sense.
Yeah, and this is people's livelihoods, right? So
yeah,
if you're uncertain about your livelihood, basically you're not feeling safe because you don't know if you're going to get that next paycheck.
Yeah,
right.
And work is a lot more than just a paycheck for a lot of people, right? It's your social network. It's where
health insurance.
Yeah, health insurance for sure. It's a lot of different things, and I've heard people say, when you lose a job, it's like a death happens, only it's like you died to everybody else that's still going on, without without you in that business. And it has that sort of like feeling. And so that makes sense that the threat of all of that happening would weigh heavily on people.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I mean, there could actually be anticipatory grief, which is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We can grieve things that might happen. And there's actually a lot of grief in losing a job too, because you're actually losing part of yourself, that
Yeah,
identity, the work that you did, the worker that you were in that role. There's grief there. You'll
for
have to,
sure.
grieve the who that you were. People who might be worried about losing their job. And I've talked to people who felt that, like
Yeah.
they are starting to hear a couple years ago when Amazon was laying off, I don't know, they laid off like 30,000 people.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it was either last August or the August before. So people who were still working for Amazon
Yeah.
were talking about it kind of like with that anticipatory grief, because they expected to be the next on the chopping block, so to speak.
It's like
So
them or that you're going to lose your coworkers or your friends to, it's like, something bad is going to happen.
right. You may not be able to work in that building anymore. You may not be able to work from home anymore. They had, a lot of places did go back to work. Amazon had another one, a very big push that people who were working from home now had to go back into the office.
Yeah.
And that, people's schedules and lives revolved around, being able to get their kids off the bus or,
Yeah.
the other things that they might have been able to do at home while they were working. And that was a big kind of shift and change. And that, that dynamic and in that lifestyle for them. So I think that people grieve lots of different parts of their work life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It makes me think, I wonder if there is a better alternative to kind of the way, like, I mean, it seemed like nowadays in a lot of workplaces, it is sort of like protection against liability. And so you like cut the people off and you cut everything off and then they're on the outside. And it's really dramatic and drastic. And perhaps there's like need to like revisit maybe how we do that. Maybe everything doesn't need to be treated like the most extreme version. I don't know. Because I also know people who are in the middle of that kind of trauma can sometimes, do things that are damaging to the company or the reputations or whatever, that they would not normally do. And so that does like protect from some of that. But maybe even in the advance, like if you had a leader of a business that was kind of facing that types of situation, what would you say to that leader to better care for their employees?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the key to a lot of what she was talking about, was to really think about the relational and the care perspective that comes out of that relational perspective, instead of looking at like, workers as commodity or as, product, or, that they
Yeah, they're not
create
widgets.
products, right?
Yeah.
Their output, but to care about them as people, as human beings, to focus on their mental health, and that is a need that, that gets really pushed aside and swept under the rugs. Management is also, people who are managers and supervisors, they're at risk for losing their job, and they're
For
dealing with
sure.
uncertainty as well. So that's really hard for them, because we are asking maybe upper management who's dealing with it themselves to be compassionate and empathetic. And they may not be receiving that compassion or that empathy. But I think that we kind of have our head in the sand, that people are really struggling with, especially AI and the changes and fear about losing their job. And there's nothing in the workplace that says, oh, you're okay. We
Yeah.
got you.
Yeah.
We're gonna get through this together. I'm not hearing any of those stories emerging, just a lot of people walking around braced.
Mm-hmm.
So and that's because that might be true. Like, it might be true. Like, we can be empathetic and caring. I could say, yeah, people in the workplace should be caring. But if it's not true that they got you and everything will be okay, that's not a message they can give.
Right.
And everyone is still going to be coping with that. But maybe at least making it said that it's
Yeah.
okay to say that, and it's also okay to get help for that.
Yeah.
Those are the things I can think of that could be helpful. Make the implicit explicit,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to talk about it and feel safe talking about the worry, and then be able to get help for it.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
The thing that I go back to that I was surprised with how well it worked for the folks that it worked for was, perhaps having some sort of standing meeting where it's like, this is not a place where we're getting answers, but it's at least a place where we're all coming to talk about what's going on. And I did that during COVID with my team up in New Jersey, and I was down in Florida. And, it was really helpful because when people joined, you were able to at least know what was going on and stressing them out and stuff. And at least they knew that you were there, and because you don't hear it otherwise. So, maybe just some of those meetings where it's like, if you don't have the answers, that's okay. But showing up and being honest about that and being like, hey, I'm going to do what I can to support you through this. And, we're here to support each other through it. It could be helpful.
Wow, like COVID is a good model. I'm glad you brought that up. But like, I think it matches in some ways because there was so much uncertainty that we lived in. People wondered, am I ever going to go back to work? Is the world ever going to be back to normal? And not really knowing what the next steps they should take, like what's safe to do and what's safe not to do. Those questions were always running there. There's probably, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong or if you have a different perspective, but I really felt like there was so much more unity around those questions, and it was more okay to talk about it than it is in talking about how AI, how technology may be changing the workforce and causing kind of fear in the hearts and minds of people.
Well, and I think it's at least twofold. Like with COVID, it came from the outside, right? It wasn't something like we made or it was something that happened to us kind of, as opposed to something the greater collective, we launched. And then like there weren't people out there being like, bring COVID into the workforce, like it was. Whereas AI and some of these technology changes are really being brought in without an understanding of, the implication on folks. And I think that like also because COVID was so extreme and severe and sudden, it was, it feels much more acute, whereas this feels like sustained. This fear is out there, but like you said, could it be a 10-year concern? Is it a 3-month concern? Whereas we had that for a brief period during COVID, it was fairly short-lived. It wasn't It wasn't like a year before we knew, oh, we'll have a vaccine and we'll get out. It was within a few months. We were kind of like, oh, there's some level of normalcy that we'll be able to get back to.
Right.
Whereas this, I don't think anybody knows what normal looks like on the other side either.
Right.
So,
yeah, we knew what the world could look like if it went back to normal.
Yeah.
We don't know what the world is going to look like because this is inevitably changing the world.
Yeah.
So there's an even higher level of uncertainty there. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, it's interesting though, because it really does seem to have a lot of those parallels. What do you think is a good sign that people could like look for, that they've kind of like, that they're in this state of constant fear or, arousal? What are the things people should be looking for?
Yeah. I mean, with the thing about being in survival mode and noticing there's a threat, there's some kind of action tendency, an action that will help you get away from the threat, like running away, right? Some animals freeze, and humans do that too, where we can become immobile if that's the response. When we don't have a way to get out of a threatening situation, usually that's where we see things like anxiety, right? And depression. When we're caught in that, I feel like I need to get away and I can't. And that sense of hopelessness. So I would say to really look for the signs, if you're noticing those signs, if you notice that you're feeling more anxious, that's increasing, or, your level of, sadness is changing. It feels more like depression. There's some hopelessness there, that these are signs to get help. And, whether or not it's about specifically the world uncertainty. I think everybody's life is so unique. People who are dealing with uncertainty here are also dealing with all the other stuff that they have to cope with. This might make it more pronounced.
Absolutely, that makes sense.
So I think what you said, like noticing more activation around those things, those are just signs that, you should get some help.
Yeah.
Get some support. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The thing that jumps to my mind when you said freeze too is like how freeze can look different with technology, right? Freeze could be sitting on your couch.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Right. Frozen doesn't mean not doing anything. Good point. Yeah. 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 Anxiety is like, I explain it like this to my clients. It's kind of like having your foot on the gas pedal and the brake at the same time. You're trying to go somewhere and not going anywhere all at once. And that's what happens when we don't have the opportunity to come full cycle after dealing with a stressful situation. Yeah, really. Yeah. You were in the car with her? Yeah, that. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right on point, to really think about there's so much in life anyway that is out of our control, and whether we're talking about the uncertainty of AI and careers, there's just so much uncertainty built into the world and so many things we're not in control of. And ritual, coming back to the things that you can control, the ways that you can be in the world that feel like they have that circular pattern for yourself or wave, whatever that feels like, that's a source of comfort. That's a source of comfort. And it's interesting, someone had pointed this out to me years ago. The word ritual is also in the word spiritual. Like there's ritual and spiritual. And what that connotes for me, thinking about what's more than us, what's more than what like really we're dealing with in this moment. And that can be the values, that could be the connection you have to people. It doesn't have to be a higher power or religious piece, but the connection that we have to people or to ourselves or to our values could be our guiding light. So, I think that, and rituals are like that. Like, even if we're like out of sorts, we know how we grieve in our culture or in our religion. We know how we marry. We know how we raise children, and how we welcome them into the spiritual world or the religious world, or, there's that pulse that we can always come back to. And having rituals around that are things that can be our pulse that bring us back to the present. Because we really only have this minute. We're getting very existential here, but if we can be present and live fully in this minute, we have that, and no one can take that away from us. That is certainty. Right. How's that feel for you when I mention all those things? Right. And moving past just being safe, I really got this like clear vision of what would happen if we all had something to come back to, if we all came back to connection, or we all came back to values. Then we're able to thrive. Then we're able to be creative. Then we might be able to figure out how do we survive a world where, chatbots are taking over the world. I don't know. But we have to really get out of safety mode, because we're also wired to be creative. We're also wired for connection. And yeah, that's right. That's right. Right. That's right. You can't go anywhere if you have your foot on the brake and the gas pedal, right? It's just not going to go anywhere. So it's really important to think about getting out of survival mode, and so that when we can feel more whole, then we can figure out how we are going to get, ourselves out of this hole, because nobody's going to throw a rope down, when we're going to have to figure it out. And we need people who are going to be creative, people who are going to be present, and connection and hope and living within our values. Like, there are so many things that we have at our disposal that can help. Yeah. 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 Those things are important, that they mattered, that they had an imprint on the world and on the people that they were leaving behind. Yeah. Yeah. Being with, and this is why I do the work that I do, and in the way that I do it, doing somatic therapy, because it's about being with feelings together. When we're alone with feelings, especially the most difficult ones, especially when we were really younger, being alone with them is traumatic. That alone is traumatic, right? You just suffered a trauma and then you have to deal with it alone. So being with people in ritual, in connection, is an opportunity to have someone else help you carry that burden. Yeah, so important. So this was really an interesting topic. I think we, again, went all over the place. Me too. Thank you, Jackie.
That the pace of change has outstripped what our brains are built to handle. let's talk about it.